Welcome, and thank you for joining us in our discussion of the MET-Go speaking test. This video is intended for examiners and educators that want to learn more about MET-Go speaking. I'm Rachel, and I'm an assessment developer with Michigan Language Assessment.
I'm Brent. I'm also an assessment developer at Michigan Language Assessment. Rachel and I were both on the team that created the MET-Go test, and we're both trained speaking examiners for MET-Go speaking.
And we also helped to create the rating tool, which is used to score the test. So today we're going to talk about the MET-Go speaking test. But first we'll give you some general information about MET-Go. So it's a secure multi-level test covering A1, which is a beginner, to B1, lower intermediate, on the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference. So the tasks cover a range of different levels, and it is wonderful for a whole class that has many different levels of proficiency, because you can give the MET-Go and it's for everyone, in your class to take. You don't need to prepare them for a specific level and worry that there are some students that might not be able to achieve that level. One of the most unique features of MET-Go is that we provide personal feedback for test takers based on their performance in all 4 skills. And today, specifically, we're going to be focusing on the speaking portion of the test, which includes 4 parts, which we'll describe for you. We'll tell you a little bit about the test, we'll listen to a sample performance, and then we'll talk about some things that the examiner does well and some things that the test taker does well during this performance. And we'll give you some overall do's and don'ts for examiners and test takers to follow when preparing for MET-Go.
All right, so part 1 of the MET-Go speaking test is really a warm-up. The goal is for the examiner to make the test taker feel comfortable. As an examiner, you should ask questions in a casual, relaxed manner. The point isn't to get through all the questions on the card, but really to ask questions that the test taker can answer about themselves confidently. This part of the speaking test is not scored because it is a warm-up, so we're not going to listen to a clip today. But Rachel is going to talk about part 2.
Thanks. So in part 2 of the test takers are given 2 different pictures. Many things are the same in these 2 pictures, but some things are different. And the test taker has to describe the differences that are found in the 2 images. So now we'll listen to a sample clip from part 2 of the test.
Now we're going to start the second part of the test. Look at the 2 pictures. Many things are the same, but some things are different. For example, in both pictures there is a bed, but in picture 1 the bed is small, and in picture 2 the bed is big. What else is different? Say as much as you can, you have 90 seconds.
Okay, the same is that in the 2 pictures are 2 persons. One is a man and one is a woman. The difference are that in picture number 1 they are water, and in 2 don't. This is smaller than this. Here I can see a cat, and here like a mouse. In the 2 pictures there are a backpack, and here I see a guitar, and in the 2 pictures they are a book in the bed, and the man is
Okay, thank you.
All right. So you'll notice that during this clip, the examiner read the examiner's script exactly as it appears on the prompt. She allows the test taker to give the answer without interrupting, And when the time is up, the examiner says thank you and moves on to part 3 of the test. The test taker describes several differences between the pictures. For example, the water in the sink versus no water, the cat versus the mouse, the guitar versus the tennis racket. She also describes some of the similarities in the picture, such as the backpack, which can be found in both images. Though this is not required of the test taker in part 2 of the test, it is a good way for them to fill that allotted time. So at times, the test taker does simply point and say that to notice the differences. We ask that anyone preparing their students for MET Go try to explain to them that they need to go beyond just pointing. So the idea is to generate as much vocabulary and as much speech as possible for each part of the test. So if you can encourage your students to elaborate as much as possible, it gives the examiner much more speech to assess. And now Brent is going to describe part 3 of the test.
In part 3 of the MET Go speaking test, the test takers are also asked to look at a picture, but this time they need to describe it and tell a story about it. So we're now going to listen to a clip from a performance. You'll see the prompt on the screen.
Now we're going to start the third part of the test. Tell me what you see in the picture and tell me a story about it. Say as much as you can. You have 60 seconds.
Okay. Here it's a music class. In the board there are notes and here the professor, she is like the director, and they are play the violin and he play the triangle. I can see like a coffee, and they are learning the things that the professor give us.
Thank you.
As we heard in the audio, the examiner really lets the test taker fill the time with speech. She doesn't interrupt or comment on the test taker's speech at all during this part of the test. We do want examiners, however, to show active listening through their body language. We can't see her body language with the audio, but I think we can assume that she is exhibiting active listening. The examiners can also do this through back channeling. So saying things like, or yeah. That's really important to maintaining that comfortable, relaxed testing experience for the test taker. The examiner also says thank you at the end. That's a great way to let the test taker know that this part of the test has ended. The test taker did a lot of things well in this part of the test. They used phrases like there are, and hear the professor, and I can see, to really frame their speech and their descriptions of what's happening in the picture. The test taker described many of the objects in the picture, the violin, the triangle, the students. So they did a great job of pointing out verbally the things they saw. The test taker also connected specific actions in the picture together. So playing the violin, playing the triangle, students learning things. She did a great job of describing what the characters in the image were doing. And that's important to remind you as an educator or even an examiner. It's really not enough for test takers to just describe the picture. They need to focus on connecting the actions by telling a story about it.
In part 4 of the test takers answer 2 questions that are related to the image from part 3. One is a personal experience question, and the other asks them to state their opinion or preference and then provide some support. In this part of the test takers are given 10 seconds to plan their answer and 60 seconds for each question to respond. So let's listen to a clip from part 4 of the test.
Now we're going to start the last part of the test. There will be 2 questions in this part. You will have a short time to plan each of your answers. Then you will have 60 seconds to talk about each question. Now let's talk about you. Tell me about a time in the past when you went to a concert or listened to music. You have 10 seconds to plan your answer. Okay, now you have 60 seconds to talk. Say as much as you can. Please begin.
In April, I went to a concert with my friends. It's a reggaeton concert, and I passed a good time because the musician say hello to us. And then I see a lot of persons like celebrities, and I sing all the songs because I learn all.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to the next question. Let's talk about your opinion. Some people like to listen to music when they study. Other people prefer to study in a quiet place. What do you think is the best way to study? Give your opinion and reasons to support it. You have 10 seconds to plan your answer. Okay, now you have 60 seconds to talk. Say as much as you can. Please begin.
I prefer to study in a quiet place because my brain don't work with music because I want to sing the song, but I can't because I have to study, and I don't like when I listen music because I don't have concentration and I didn't learn any.
Okay.
You'll notice that in this clip, the speaking examiner reads the examiner discourse exactly as it appears on the test card, and she follows the instructions. She gives the test taker 10 seconds of planning time for each question, and she allows the test taker to speak without interrupting her. When the test is complete, the examiner lets the test taker know by saying, "This is the end of the MET Go speaking test." In part 4, task 1, the test taker describes a personal experience of going to a reggaeton concert with some friends, and she gives some support for this experience, talking about how she had a good time and she saw many people, including some celebrities. So she does a good job describing that experience. In part 4, task 2, the test taker gives her opinion that she prefers to study in a quiet place, and she supports her opinion by giving some reasons for that. For example, it's difficult to concentrate when she has music playing while studying.
We're now going to talk about some examiner tips for success. Some of the things that examiners should just keep in mind when they're administering the test is to really read the examiner script we provide in bold. We want to make sure that test takers are receiving the same testing experience every time. And so reading the discourse that we provide is very important. It's also important for examiners to be relaxed and friendly, to really help the test takers be at ease. Especially at this level of English, a lot of test takers are younger, and so we want them to feel as comfortable as they can during the test. Examiners should also exhibit active listening, either through back channeling or through body language, again, to maintain that air of comfort throughout the test. Examiners should also enforce the time limitations of the test, not just for the amount of time test takers have to speak, but also for the planning time. That's really important, especially in the last part of the test, so that test takers have the ability to begin formulating what they're going to say.
So some of the things that we ask for our examiners to avoid when giving the test, as Brent said, it's important to create a consistent testing environment for each test taker. So paraphrasing or changing the tasks or the instructions is something that we really do want examiners to avoid. This can affect the performance of the test taker because they might not understand something, or the prompt might be different and there might be some vocabulary that they're not aware of. So we do specifically check for that when we're creating these prompts, and that is why it's so important to just stick to what is on the prompt. We also ask that the examiners avoid interrupting the test taker. The only exception to that would be to gently enforce the time limits for each part of the test. So if a test taker is going too far beyond the time limit, then the examiner can gently interrupt them and say, no, we have to move on to the next part of the test. Also, and this is really difficult for educators or former teachers like myself, providing verbal feedback by saying things such as good or nice job during the test. The test taker might take that as commentary on their performance on the test, even though sometimes it's just used for back channeling or to transition to different parts of the test. So we ask that our examiners avoid that, which, it takes practice, but it should be avoided. So thinking a little bit about the test taker and setting them up for success, we really encourage teachers to, when they're preparing their students for MET Go speaking, to have them aware that they should answer all of the questions, and provide as much supporting detail as they can in the time allowed. So, practicing in groups or in pairs of, giving them prompts and allowing them to speak and giving them time limits, like a 60-second time limit. 60 seconds doesn't seem like much time, but when you have to fill that with a monologic speech, then it can be an eternity for some test takers. And so just having them practice, filling that time and providing as much supporting detail as they can, this gives the examiner more to assess when they're making their assessment of the test taker and giving them their scores according to the rating tool that we've designed.
Yeah, I think that's really important about filling the time. We really want to encourage test takers to talk as much as they can, and also encourage them to use what they know, and avoid getting stuck trying to find the right word or the best word. We've designed the test to showcase their ability, and they should remember that and kind of, when they take the test, really be ready to highlight what they know, instead of spending the time searching for what's right or what's a better way to say this. We want them to feel like they already have the skills they need to do well. And so to keep that in mind for them is really important. We also really want test takers to have fun. When we were designing the test, we wanted to make it engaging and interesting for test takers. So we've heard some really great feedback that we've succeeded, but just trying to encourage our test takers to have fun, to enjoy the experience as much as they can, and also do the best that they can.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really hope that we've answered some of your questions about MET Go speaking. And if you have any additional questions, then please feel free to email us at info@michiganassessment.org.